Good everyone, my name is Alex and welcome to a new review. Today I have yet another Chinese smartphone that you've never heard about. This one is called the Cubot Manito. At the time of this video the phone costs about $90. So for $90 we do get a lot. First of all, we get a phone with a metallic frame. And I have to say that it doesn't look like a cheap phone at all. It looks like a premium phone that costs, I don't know, $300-400. So yeah, it does look really good. We have a MediaTek processor. It's only a quad-core processor. We have 3 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage and running Android 6. So on paper the specs sound really good. Starting with the back of the device. So even though it looks like it's made out of leather, it's in fact plastic. It's some type of a rubberized plastic that feels really nice to touch. So on the back there we have an 8 megapixel camera sensor. It's an okay camera, but I've seen much better. Underneath that we find the flash, and underneath that the Cubot logo. If we look all the way at the bottom of the device, we're gonna find the speaker. So the speaker is sitting onto the back on the Cubot Manito. The speaker gets kind of loud, but at maximum volume seems a bit distorted. And here is a sample of how the speaker sounds.
Morning sun, searching for a longer day. People feeling like the light has just come. We must never stop the way. Birds chirping and I hear my name.
So as I said before, we have a metallic frame all around the phone. So yeah, the phone does look pretty good. On top of the phone there we are going to find the 3.5mm audio jack and the charging port. So we have a micro USB. And since I'm talking about this micro USB there, yes, the phone supports OTG. So you can connect a USB stick or anything like that. And yes, the phone will be able to see whatever you connect to it. So it's a very good feature considering the price of the phone. On the right hand side of the phone we are going to find the volume keys and the power button. Now I'm not 100% sure if these are actually made out of metal. They do feel like made out of metal, but I can't say 100% sure. They could be made out of plastic. At the bottom of the device we're just going to find the microphone, so pretty much nothing, and nothing onto the other side of the phone either. If we remove the back cover, we are going to find the battery. The battery is not the absolute biggest battery. We have a 2350 milliamp battery, but since we are talking about the battery, I was able to get about 3.5 hours, 4 hours of screen on time. It really depends how you're going to be using the phone. I had the phone on standby for over 4 days, so I left the phone running and nothing was happening, and the battery lasted for over 4 days. So depending on how you'll be using this phone, you can get 3-4 hours of screen on time. Aside from the battery, we are going to find 2 SIM card slots. So yes, it takes a nano SIM and a micro SIM, and an SD card, as I said before. And since we have Android 6 onto this particular device, you can install an SD card as internal storage. So all of a sudden the 11 gigs that we have from the factory, because that's how much we have free from the 16 gigs, can become, I don't know, 32, 48 gigs, whatever SD card you insert. The manufacturer says that you can insert an SD card up to 128 gigs. So I haven't tried that. I only have a 32 gig SD card. On the front of the device, starting at the top, we're going to find the camera, the front-facing camera. This is a 1.3 megapixel camera, but I did take some okay selfies with it, and these are 2 examples for selfies that I took with this camera. So not the absolute best, but considering the price of the phone, I think they're rather appropriate. Also on the front of the device there is a little LED, which could be like a notification light, but I wasn't able to get this notification light going. It only comes on whenever you are charging the device, so it stays red. Other than that, I wasn't actually able to get it going. Now the screen. So we have a 5-inch screen with a resolution of 720p. I did try to scratch the screen on a couple of occasions, and no, the screen doesn't scratch easily, so it must have some type of scratch resistant glass. The viewing angles on the screen, they're not the absolute best, and yeah, depending how you look at the device, you may not be able to see the screen. And yes, there is a lot of reflection onto this screen, so if you're going outside with it, it's going to be quite difficult to see the screen. Aside from that, the screen sensitivity is really good, and we can touch this phone in 10 places in the same time and the screen will register, which is rather unheard for a device this cheap. And continuing down the screen at the bottom there we are going to find the navigation buttons. They don't light up, but for the price of the phone I think it's rather okay. The Cubot Manito is using Android 6 with Cubot's own skin on top of it. Now, I have to say that it looks a lot like a stock Android device. So if you scroll left, right, or whatever you're doing on the UI, it is very, very smooth, and everything you're gonna see it's stock Android. Like, we're not gonna find any added features, any added apps that we don't really need. So very, very close to stock Android. The phone comes pre-installed with a couple of apps. So we do get the Play Store, we get an FM radio app, and the phone is actually using Google Photos, so it doesn't even come with its own gallery, which is probably a good thing because everybody's using Google Photos, the pictures go to the cloud there, so everybody's happy. So yeah, I'm very happy with the UI onto this device because it's very nice, very simple, and it does work really, really well. The settings app, it's also simple. We don't have that many added features. We do have some feature that's called Smart Awake, and what that does basically, you can draw a letter onto the screen and an app will open, or you can double tap the screen and the phone will wake up. And I do like this feature. I did try it on a few occasions and it seems to work fairly well now, 95% of the time. I did have the phone a couple of times not register the double tap to wake up, but most of the times it does seem to work really, really good. And again, like most of these phones, we have a whole bunch of languages available. So I'm just gonna scroll through them very quickly so you can see whatever languages are available. But overall, the UI does seem to work really, really good, and I haven't had any issues with any apps crashing or any apps slowing down. So everything seems to go fairly well. That MediaTek processor that's being used in this device is not the absolute fastest, and you can really see this onto the Antutu Benchmark score. So we get a very low score of about 30,000, so yeah, rather low score. And on the Geekbench 4 we also get a score of about 1500 for the multi-core score. So overall, not the absolute fastest device, but you wouldn't tell that it's a slow device because none of the apps feel like this is a slow device at all. I've also checked the speeds for the internal memory and the RAM, and yes, the speeds do seem appropriate for this type of a device. Now, the best thing about this phone is the GPS. So as soon as you turn on the GPS testing app, the phone connects to the satellite, so very, very quickly. Using Google Maps, it's also awesome, and I have to be honest, I haven't found any Cubot device that had a bad GPS unit. So most of these Cubot devices do seem to go very, very good with the GPS. And since we are talking about the GPS, as you'd probably expect, this phone doesn't come with a whole bunch of sensors, so we do have only a couple of sensors available. Well, a few, I would say, not a couple, but most of them seem to work okay. So for the price of the device, I don't think we can expect that much. So this phone supports 4G connectivity as well and dual band Wi-Fi. And since I'm talking about dual band Wi-Fi and 4G connectivity, these are the speeds that I got with the speed test app. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to connect to the 4G network. I got H+, so which is like 3.5G basically. So the speeds are okay, but for some reason I wasn't able to connect to any 4G bands, which was rather unfortunate. But overall connectivity is great, and I'm very happy to see that we have dual band Wi-Fi as well. Making phone calls also works great. I haven't had any issues with people not hearing me or not hearing people. I wish the speaker would be slightly louder, but I have the same problem with like 99% of the phones, so the speaker here doesn't get that loud. But overall call quality, it's great, and I don't have any complaints about making phone calls with this phone. Now the rear camera and the camera app. The camera app looks just like any other camera app that we've seen on most of these cheap MediaTek devices, so they didn't actually change it at all. And I have to say it is rather boring. We don't have that many options. You can't really do that much with it. We do have an HDR mode like most of these phones that we've seen, but the HDR taking pictures takes quite some time, so you actually have to hold your hand really, really steady, otherwise the pictures come out blurry or some weird things show up in the pictures. So yeah, the HDR is very slow focusing, it's a bit slow, but in daylight pictures turn out okay, and I'm gonna show you a couple of sample pictures taken in daylight. Nighttime pictures are, well, I can't really say okay because they don't look the absolute best, but they're better than other cheaper phones. But again, I wouldn't say that the pictures taken at night are usable. So overall the camera's nothing special. It's a cheap camera, it's a cheap phone, so I didn't really expect that much from the camera. So if you only have about $90 to spend on a phone, I think this is a very good choice. The phone looks really good. I mean, that metallic frame, that leather imitation onto the back, the phone does look surprisingly good for its low price. Everything seems to go very well. The battery could be a bit better. We don't have the best battery out there, but it is acceptable, again, considering the price of the phone. Cameras on these cheap devices, I've never expected any real performance, so you do get what you pay for, like most of these devices, but most of the things on this phone seem to do fairly good. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe, press that like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.